What is going on, guys? It is Zombie, and welcome back into another video. And today we're going to be talking about the Five Nights at Freddy's X Dead by Daylight crossover coming this June. Now, we already know that Five Nights at Freddy's is in fact coming to Dead by Daylight, and although we don't exactly know who is coming into the game, it's safe to assume the killer is going to be Springtrap and the survivor is going to be Michael Afton. So I was thinking, what are their skins going to be, and more specifically, what legendary skins are going to be in this game? Now, there's no guarantee that we're even getting Springtrap or Michael Afton to begin with. That's just my guess based on what I feel like is the most logical conclusion to come to. But I do think there's a high likely chance that if we are getting them, we're probably going to get a lot of skins. And although that's not a guarantee, judging by the history of FNAF with games such as Special Delivery, where we got skins of anything you can think of, I think we're going to get some pretty creative and some pretty cool skins coming into Dead by Daylight, some of which I believe are going to be maybe original even, or maybe different takes on the FNAF games previously. But I wanted to primarily cover skins based on the characters from the games and not necessarily from other media such as the books. So before we talk about things such as legendary skins for the characters, I wanted to talk about the normal skins that can potentially come into the game if it is in fact Springtrap and Michael Afton as the killer and the survivor. So the first skin for Springtrap that I think a lot of people would really like to see is the yellow rabbit from Into the Pit. Now, this is a version of Spring Bonnie that is completely different from anything we've seen. I'm not too well versed on the FNAF books myself, which is a shame as someone who used to be really into the lore, but it's just gotten way too confusing for me. But from what I understand, this version of Spring Bonnie is a completely different take on him, and he's a lot more animalistic, and I just think that part of him is really cool. I can definitely see this kind of breaching into the legendary skin category, as he's pretty much a different character, but I would still say that he's kind of the same to the point where he could probably still stay as just a regular skin. I think another very likely skin we can get for Springtrap is Dark Springtrap, which is not really its own character, but just kind of a different look for Springtrap after the fire and between when he became Scraptrap, which I really hope doesn't come into the game, because I feel like most people just want to forget about Scraptrap. But I feel like Dark Springtrap would be kind of a cool recolor to Springtrap. It might not even be its own skin, it might just be like one of those cheap alternative skins that you can get for characters that are usually way less than, you know, the other versions, like the recolors essentially, because that's pretty much what Dark Springtrap essentially is just a recolor. And the third most likely Springtrap skin I think that could come into the game is again kind of breaching that legendary skin category, but it is still kind of the same character, and that's Burntrap. I feel like Burntrap was a very underutilized character for his design. I think it's sick, and I think the way he was handled in Security Breach, I just think Burntrap would be a really cool alternative skin to wear as Springtrap, as I think he has a really sick design, and I think he would really fit in Dead by Daylight. That being said, there are countless other Springtrap skins, especially from Special Delivery, that can fit very well in the Dead by Daylight. It's just that if I were to go over every single Springtrap skin specifically, I could make a whole video on that alone. Now I want to talk about the survivor. We honestly have no clue who the survivor is going to be. There's not really many people to choose from. It's definitely going to be based on the games, considering the copyright solely goes to Scott Cawthon and not Blumhouse in any way or form, so I believe it's going to only be the characters from the games. And since there are only two characters that are adults that I can think of that would be survivors, that being Michael Afton or Vanessa, and I guess Edwin now. But assuming the survivor, the sole survivor of the chapter, is going to be Michael Afton, there's two skins I can see coming with him, and one of which would be a legendary skin, and the first skin would be a scoop version of Michael Afton, which I think would be really cool to see. It would definitely make him stand out as a survivor, in my opinion. I've been a really big fan of Dead by Daylight introducing characters that aren't exactly entirely human, and I guess at this point in Michael Afton's life, he's not really a human, but more of a zombie. So it would be really cool to see Dead by Daylight have a zombie survivor. I just think that would be really funny. I mean, we have vampire survivors now, so I don't see why we can't have zombie survivors. And of course, if we're not going to just get Vanessa as a survivor, she definitely should be a legendary skin in the game. Anyways, Moving on from that, I want to talk about the legendary skins that can come with this chapter that go on to other killers that we already have, and there's a lot of really interesting ideas that I would love to see, and I'm even going to separate these in kind of like a tier list, in my opinion, what I like the most and what I think is most likely going to come into the game. Of course, none of these can come into the game, but I just have really high hopes that we're probably going to get legendary skins for FNAF, considering everybody knows that people are gonna love this chapter. Of course, none of these are confirmed to be coming into the game. We're not even sure if we're gonna get legendary skins at all. Needless to say, with how big this chapter is going to be, I have a really strong feeling that we're gonna get at least a couple. So the first one, which is one I'm a really big fan of, and that is Legion being a Vanny skin. I just think this one's perfect because, well, it's one of the few human villains in the FNAF series, and it'd be really interesting to see Legion as Vanny, and I just think this one fits the most, especially because we've already had bunny skins for Legion before. I also just feel like with the playstyle of Legion, it just fits Vanny very well at all. I just can't really imagine Vanny being anyone else, or even as Springtrap. I just feel like that would be a weird skin. In terms of likelihood for how much this is probably going to happen, I'm going to probably have to put it in S tier, because I feel like if they're going to do legendary skins for this chapter, they're definitely going to do Vanny. Another reason why I believe Vanny might be a really good choice to have as a legendary is I feel like a lot of people's complaints about Vanny in Security Breach is how underused she was, with how much she was marketed, and I feel like her being a playable killer in Dead by Daylight would definitely make up for some of that. Next entry is one that I wasn't particularly thinking of originally, but I saw a few posts about it, and I was like, you know what? That's actually a pretty good idea, and that is Foxy as the Blight. I just think that's such a cool concept for a legendary skin, for Foxy being the Blight. I mean, the playstyle fits. He rushes around the map and just whacks people. I don't really know what they would do for the weapon. I guess they can just switch his cane out and just have him hit people with his hook or something. And as much as I really like this idea, I just don't see this one happening for some reason if they were to do legendary skins. So I'm going to have to put this one at B tier simply because of the fact that I just don't think this one is very likely to happen if it does even happen anyways. So the next one is moving on to my current killer main, which is the Unknown, and I feel like this one is just a match made in heaven, and that's Ennard being the Unknown. I feel like with their body types and like with how they move, I feel like it can really fit Ennard very well, and I just think it just fits him extremely good. I also just really like Ennard's design. I just think him being a killer in Dead by Daylight would be really cool. I just don't think he would work as his like own killer in a chapter, so I think this would be probably the best way to have him in the game. Another idea I saw floating around about the Unknown actually I really liked is actually Michael Afton as the Unknown, and of course not, you know, regular Michael Afton, but the scooped Michael. I am not too much of a fan on this one because I would just prefer Michael Afton to be the survivor, but you know, I think it fits very well still, even, you know, if he's evil. But if I had to give a placement for Ennard, I would probably have to give him S tier because I just feel like out of all the characters besides Vanny, he probably would be the most likely to get a legendary skin, and I think he would fit the game very, very well. I'm also of the opinion if there weren't other characters in the FNAF series such as, well, Springtrap and, well, the Mimic, I think that Ennard would actually have a very likely chance of being his own killer, but I feel like with, you know, Springtrap and the Mimic being in the game, that's not happening. Now, moving on is a concept I really, really like, but I don't think is very likely to come into the game, and that is the Dredge being Molten Freddy. Alternatively, the Blob from Security Breach, but Molten Freddy also just works better in my opinion. I feel like it would be really hard to make a legendary skin for the Dredge that isn't Molten Freddy. I feel like Molten Freddy is just the perfect FNAF character to go on the Dredge. I just feel like it's like, again, a match made in heaven. Alternatively, if they didn't go the Molten Freddy route, they can just make Dredge have different parts of different animatronics, kind of like how people thought that Springtrap was going to be like the Salvage when FNAF 3 was first coming out. But I digress. I think that Molten Freddy is probably going to have to go in A. I think it's not going to happen, but I think it's such a cool concept and I think it fits very well. So the next idea I'm personally not a big fan of, and that is the Doctor being Dreadbear. I think it fits, but I think the connection primarily just relies on the fact that Dreadbear is electrical and so is the Doctor, but I just don't think it would work very well in my opinion. I know goofiness isn't really a factor when it comes to DBD killer skins, but I just feel like Dreadbear is kind of towing the line just a little bit, and I feel like there's so many more prominent characters that can come into the game that are from the FNAF series that should probably come in first before Dreadbear that I'm just not really big on him being in it. I definitely think it can work, I just don't think it would really be that good. I can kind of see this one happening, and that's why I'm going to put this one in the B tier. I just am not really big on it, and I would rather it not be in the game, but if it happens, it happens. So the next idea is one that I think that is really, really cool, and I really would love it to come into the game, but it's just not going to happen because of how the game works, and that is Funtime Freddy being the twins. Now, I think Funtime Freddy being the twins would work very perfectly with how, well, the twin plays. Instead of Victor, you would have Bonbon, and instead of Charlotte, you would have, well, Funtime Freddy. There could even be voice lines with Funtime Freddy, which I think everyone would appreciate. And although I think a lot of people would like to see this, and I even think Behavior would be down to do this, I think the problem lies in the fact that Behavior is not currently capable with updating previous killer powers. So the only way we would get Funtime Freddy with the twins is if for some reason Funtime Freddy had Victor instead of Bonbon, which I just think would be weird. I really hope there's a way they can get around this, because I feel like this would be such a cool legendary skin to have, and in general, I just really hope they can somehow get around the changing killer powers so that they can get, well, skins, because I feel like there's so many skin opportunities that they just can't do because of this issue. Or at the very least, it would look very awkward. In good news though, future killers don't have this issue, but, you know, I would really like to see this with the twins. So even though I really like this idea, it breaks my heart, but I'm probably gonna have to put this in C tier because I don't think it's happening. Alright, this one's kind of a joke one, but I feel like people really want Freddy Fazbear in Dead by Daylight, and that's why I'm gonna talk about Freddy Fazbear being the Trapper. There's genuinely no connection other than both of them being the poster childs of their games. I guess the one thing about the Trapper and Freddy Fazbear is that, well, the Trapper was Naughty Bear, and that's, you know, a giant bear, so I guess that works. So technically speaking, I guess nothing's stopping Freddy Fazbear from coming into Dead by Daylight, but I just feel like Freddy Fazbear in Dead by Daylight would be a little too silly, but again, we have Naughty Bear, so, you know, there's really no limits, man. I don't really care if Freddy Fazbear got added either way, but I just don't think this one's happening, so I'm gonna put it at D tier, because I just don't see Freddy Fazbear coming into Dead by Daylight other than, like, a prop or references and perks and stuff. And moving on to the final one, and this one is an interesting one because I actually kind of want to make my own video specifically about this, and that is the Mimic being the singularity. Now, the reason why I say that is because I feel like it probably won't actually end up being a legendary skin, but if it does, it's probably an easy S+ tier for me. Now, the reason why I say it probably won't be a legendary skin is that if this chapter does very well, and both Scott and Behavior wanted to do a part 2 chapter like they've done before, I feel like they're probably going to do the Mimic. I mean, it's very well possible the killer could just be the Mimic, but I don't really think we're gonna get the Mimic as a killer for the DBD FNAF chapter because everyone is expecting Springtrap. Mimic being the singularity would be such a cool skin in my opinion. He even does that like arm thing that the Mimic does, which I think fits very well, and both of them are, well, killer AIs, which is interesting that, you know, that fits so well, especially with that, you know, arm thing. But yeah, if this were to be a legendary skin, this would definitely be an easy S+ tier for me. Again, I just don't know, because I feel like they might save this if they ever wanted to do a part 2 to a FNAF chapter with both, like, the old series FNAF with, like, Springtrap and Michael, and then, like, the new series FNAF with, like, Edwin and the Mimic. But yeah, that's just kind of me talking about what I think would happen if there were legendary skins for this chapter. Of course, this is just all me talking about my own opinions and my own ideas. I don't have any idea what's going to come, so if all this is wrong, don't be mad at me. If you have any ideas for your own legendary skins or your own ideas for, I guess, a part 2 chapter, I would like to hear your guys' suggestions in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like. And comment down below your suggestions down below what you guys think will be coming with this chapter. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day, and peace.